Welcome to the Sermon Notes Podcast. I'm Jay Strother, and we are continuing our special series for the month of August, highlighting the stories of global workers who are taking the gospel to the nations. As we prepare for Sunday, August 17th, when a global worker will be preaching at each of our campuses, we're introducing you to some of the men and women that you have helped send and support. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Danielle Schneider, who has been serving in South Africa for over 17 years. She's the life skill educator advisor at Living Hope Ministries, where she mentors and trains local staff to reach children and teens through daily programs and seasonal VBS-style events. She also leads the preschool and children's ministry at King of Kings Baptist Church, where families are growing in faith and discipleship. So you'll hear today how God is moving in sub-Saharan Africa and how Danielle is equipping others to share the gospel with the next generation. So let's get started. Danielle, it is so fun to have you on the podcast.
It's so good to be here, Jay.
Yeah.
So good.
And I got to admit, even just reading the description of like, you have 2 full-time jobs.
No, they're part-time.
You know.
Both are part-time. Part-time in ministry.
We all know in ministry, part-time job means full-time work.
Absolutely.
Part-time pay, usually, right?
Yes.
But no, listen, it's been a joy. And again, just a little history. I've known you now for like 20 years. As a matter of fact,
when we were like 12 years old,
That's right. That's right.
Yes,
We were both went to ministry when we were like 6.
Yes, absolutely.
But my girls know you by a different moniker. They know you by Missions Mama.
Yeah.
Because before you were called to South Africa, when my girls were little, who by now the way are in their mid-20s.
I know, that is crazy.
But you had such an impact on their life because with the children's ministry, you were the one who would kind of bridge that gap. Here's what we're doing globally, and you would help come in and explain it to our kids on a regular basis. And they've never forgotten that. And I absolutely love that my second daughter, Lexi, got to come to South Africa and serve alongside of you. And I've been there too. And so it's been so fun over the years to just cheer you on and to see the continued great partnership between our church and Living Hope. It's one of our longest Hope for the World mission partners. And so as we get into this, though, I don't want to assume that everybody knows your story because we have a lot of new people to our church in the last few years. So give us a little bit, as we shared here at the Brentwood campus yesterday, Keith Holloway gave us a little bit about his calling.
It was
and
so great.
How God worked. Yeah, so tell us how God worked in your life because, again, as we talked about yesterday, we're all called to share the gospel.
Yes.
But God does set people apart for specific assignments to take the gospel to places like Africa. And so walk us through that process, what that was like. Go throw it in the Wayback Machine for you. Go back, over 17 years and share that with us.
Yeah, and it's funny when I look back now and thinking about this missions mama character who, in doing mission trips in high school, in college, after I knew the Lord, realizing how the Lord was using all of that, and I was clueless to that. I just thought it's so cool to share about different countries with kids and get them excited about what God is doing around the world. So way back, let's throw it back in 2004, John Thomas, who is the founder of King of Kings, he's pastor of King of Kings, but was the founder of Living Hope. He was preaching here on a Sunday morning. Yeah. I don't remember that.
Yeah. I do because of the way he says Isaiah, like he has this unique.
I still can't say it.
No, I can't
South
do
African.
it right. I'm not going to do it justice. But it's just I remember that sermon though because he just again God-given gift.
Clueless. And so the small group I was in, a bunch of ladies, they were like, Danielle, we really feel like you need to go on that mission trip to South Africa. And I was like, I never need to go to the continent of Africa. You are crazy. And so kicking and screaming a little bit of just going, Lord, you have to make it abundantly clear. And I know that we talk about, and I would, as I share my story, I don't tell kids to test God in this, but I did tell the Lord, I needed a cloud, I needed a billboard. You needed to let me know I was supposed to go on this trip.
Yeah.
A 10-day trip. We're not talking about moving. We're talking about literally just going. And the Lord did send a billboard and a cloud, literally. And so I went on that first trip, and it changed my life. When I came back, I hear over the years, other people have said, we knew you were never going to live in the U.S. again after that. But the Lord, in his sovereignty, not mine, it took about 4 years from that point before I moved. And again, Keith shared a little bit this yesterday. You're like, I'm not equipped. That's not me. I'm not that person. And even when everything worked so quickly. Like, it is not like that now, the way the process works, which is great. You need to go to training. You need to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And our missions pastor time was just like, here's your one-way ticket, and you're going. And again, because of the relationship we had already had for years with Living Hope.
Yeah.
And so I went for 1 year. I was supposed to go for 1 year. And then after that 1 year, it was, why am I going to come back?
Yeah.
What is the reason? And so that kind of, again, a lot of things, but the biggest is looking and seeing, I look back and think, God, why did you do all of that just to get me on that first trip? And then realizing that first trip was the catalyst and the trips I went on after that to get me ready.
Yeah, and that's one of the pathways, just because you go on a short-term trip doesn't necessarily mean God's going to say, this is your next assignment.
Absolutely.
But for someone who is seeking, it is a pathway by which I think, for me, I've tried to go on at least one mission journey a year globally, because I feel like, number one, it opens your eyes to what God's doing in different parts of the world.
Yes.
And you can hear about it secondhand. You can watch the videos, hear from global workers or missionaries, but to see it firsthand yourself.
To see it, taste it, smell it, walk it, all of those things. It just, again, not everyone is called to get on the plane and go.
Yeah.
But when you go just in that, whether it's to encourage your global workers that are there.
That's right.
Or just to go and serve and encourage local people who are pouring out into their nation of things. And so, it's one of those, we should all be going just so that we realize that there is a world outside of what we see.
Yeah, I think if you're
life.
able, and again, we always go to help and to encourage and to plug into various ministries. I know, for instance, the VBS style ministry that you guys do, you call them holiday clubs in South Africa. But man, it's so helpful to have more hands and more feet and more people with
more
energy.
And that know
the
great thing that started. I was actually reflecting on that. That whole concept of Brentwood sending teams to come and help do VBS, Holiday Club, started in 2008, like right after I got there was the first. And it was just, you're with people who most have already taught VBS. And to me, that is a great launching pad because we know VBS. Like people here, we know VBS. But for our staff at Living Hope, we do it 6 or 7 times a year. So VBS gets...
Well, and they're just saying here, there's no tired like VBS tired.
Ooh.
So can you imagine for our folks doing it 6 or 7 times a year? So
and in the middle of
what
the
a
year,
booster shot that
in
is.
winter, we do 3 weeks of it.
Wow.
So I always tell the kids, if I'm ever back in the summer, like this summer, I got to speak at 3 different VBSs, and I was like, okay, kids, what if we did VBS next week too? And all the kids are like, yes! And all the adults are like, are you crazy? No. But that's what, it's a different, so to have people that are excited, and it just brings that energy that just helps our staff that are doing this every day.
Yeah. And as you think about that, so we go to serve, help, come alongside. And we do it alongside of partners. That's one of the great things. So it's not like we're just there for a week and then we're gone. It's like the lives you influence, you guys are going to continue to disciple and walk with. But I know that I think I'm going to give, but man, what I learn, the perspective the Lord gives me, the encouragement, I gain. And again, you don't go to get, but in other words, when you're just trying to be obedient, the Lord blesses that in a variety of ways. And as you mentioned, interesting stat, Keith and I have been tossed around. A pretty well-known pastor his team has kind of done the numbers, and for about every 100 people who go on short-term journeys, one of those ends up a full-time global worker, which is really interesting. So you're that, you're that one out of 100. How about that, right? But because for some people it is, the Lord uses that to really be able to open your eyes to say, hey, this is your next assignment. Like, this is what I've called you to do. So let's talk about that a little bit. As you got to South Africa and you began to kind of walk this dual path of working with Living Hope. And so first of all, let's describe Living Hope for folks who don't know it.
So Living Hope is a nonprofit that has been around for 25 years, started by John Thomas and his wife, Avril. And so it is the easiest way that I can explain what Living Hope does is basically to say what we don't do. So Living Hope has, I believe we're at 50-something different programs of things that we do. So we do everything you could think of, except we are not in anti-human trafficking, and we don't do prison ministry. And I should say yet, because who knows
those might be
what the future is going to have. But everything from women who they're in their pregnancy, they're in crisis pregnancies, whatever they need help. They need to know what it looks like to parent. We have agricultural programs. We have job programs. We do children's ministry, preschool ministry, youth ministry, worker readiness to help people find jobs. We have a healthcare center.
Yeah.
We have community teams that go out and work in the community and go do home visits. And so everything that you can think of.
Well, we ask this spiritual challenge question to our people: what's breaking your heart in the world, and what are you doing about it? And so Pastor John and Averil's story is that the AIDS crisis really broke their heart. And so it started off as really a ministry to people in AIDS hospice. Yeah. But then it became a health center, and then it branched into all of these ministries because, again, we're holistic people, and the communities, there's such need, and where there was need, the ministry said, hey, we can step in and do something about it. So you work specifically with the children's end of things.
Yes.
So describe that to us, what you do as a life skills educator.
So one of the things that, having been on the field 17 years and seeing Living Hope be around for 25 years, is it works because nationals are the ones who are teaching. Yeah. Nationals are the ones who are doing everything. And we are coming alongside and encouraging, equipping, teaching. And so my role is very much mentoring, teaching our local staff of about 15 life skill educators who run kids clubs. Yeah. So basically Sunday school, every day of the week.
Yeah.
And youth.
But you bring it to the communities.
We bring it to the communities. The staff live in those communities, so they know when things aren't right, kind of, don't come in today. We just kind of need to settle things down a little bit.
So wise.
So my role is to get all the curriculum that is needed, train them, do club visits. I also say it's kind of like being the principal of a school, and you go visit and you drop in, and teachers always, I was a teacher, so I could say you were always like, oh no, the principal came in. But to just kind of observe and see what's going on, how are the kids doing, what might be some things we need to work on with behavior or things that might be a resource, as well as getting 7 VBSs ready a year.
That's a while.
And 17 years, we do 7 different VBSs every year. So it's not like, the next year we do the same 7. No. So we have only repeated 2 VBSs, 2 VBS curriculums in 17 years.
That's so much.
And it's also a testament of partnerships and resources that that Brentwood has blessed us with, and other churches that partner with Living Hope. So that is what my role is there, to mentor our staff, and just because many of them, they haven't had education classes, they don't. So they'll have kids and be like, how do I handle this situation? So rather than the Mlungu, the white person coming in and teaching and not teaching in their language, even though the kids speak English, it's not their heart language. Right. It's not their first language. Yeah. So being that resource for them. Yeah. And to me, that's the Living Hope model of like finding and training the nationals.
I love it. Well, there's a couple of things that are so important. First of all, it's biblical, right? Yeah. Ephesians 4 tells us that if we were ministers of the gospel, we equip the saints for acts of service so that the body of Christ is built up, right? And so that's what you're doing. You are building up these national believers who are, as you mentioned, are already embedded in their own communities. And so that's so important. And like you said, they speak the language, they know the culture. And again, I don't know that everybody understands some of the unique challenges of South Africa. It's a place unlike any other place I've been in the world, in the sense that, because of the system that was put into place, even before apartheid was ended, but the township system in which people are basically assigned a very small area in which to live. Yeah. And so there are these, we would call them, shanty towns, or,
shacks,
that are all just built and compressed into a small area. Yep. Then you have a very nice area, tourist area, subdivision. I mean, some of the most beautiful places I've ever been on earth are in South Africa, but then you'll have this township and it has its own culture and it has its own people. And so what you guys have been able to do is to train those people who can then take that curriculum, which ultimately points them to the gospel, and be able to minister in their own township, in their own neighborhood in a way. Yeah. And you can just go a couple miles down the road in a different township and it's very different. Like I think like Mossy to Oceanside, they're not even that far away. Yeah. But the culture within, the subculture within each of those townships is unique, and there's gatekeepers.
Yep.
And there are things you need to do to be safe, or things you could do to be unsafe if you just walked in there and didn't know what you were doing. So that's why we always go with partners.
Yep.
But I love that model because, again, it means that we're raising up disciple makers from within those indigenous communities.
Yeah. And I love, right now at Living Hope, we have, when I first moved in 2008 to South Africa to serve at Living Hope, one of the kids, he's a life skill educator and has been for a couple of years. And so it's really fun sometimes and mentoring and walking alongside him as a young man who's about to get married, has a child, like getting the Auntie Danielle, can I just talk to you about something? Like just those kind of roles of
you
just
become
being,
a mentor.
Yeah, just being a mentor and being not that you're there to say you're doing it wrong, this is how you do it, but also walking alongside and encouraging, and also knowing there are moments that are hard, but then those beautiful moments of seeing change in the next generation and being there now this long, you can see that. You can see it's like coming back here.
Well, some of those kids that you have trained are now the young adults that are mentors.
It's like coming
in
back
your
here
program.
and seeing your daughters and other kids that age that are grown up and married, but still when they see me, come and hug me and say, missions mama. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, so good, so good. All right, so that's only part of what you do. You are also on staff at King of Kings Baptist Church. So that's the church that John Thomas pastored, and to which this nonprofit ministry was launched out of. But it's still very much a hub for that community and influential in the Cape Town area. So talk to us a little bit about that role, which looks a lot like what our preschool and children's team does here at Brentwood Baptist Church.
Yeah, so 9 years ago, so when I first got there, it was just full time at Living Hope, and I actually came to like a crossroads. I was feeling like the Lord was stirring. I loved how sometimes when you hear missionaries share of we feel like our season's coming to an end. So I had been back in the States. I like to say I got stuck in the U.S., which people are like, but I'm like, no, I got stuck here. Renewing my South African visa and all those types of things that
legal details,
all those legal things that any global worker can give you the visa stories because they're so fun.
Right.
But so while I was in the States, I very much felt like, Lord, is this season coming to an end? Like, is this, because I'd only gone for a year. And so at this point it was almost 9 years in. And I went back to South Africa and just was kind of thinking this was like in April, May. And I was like, it feels like maybe the end of the year would be. And I'll never forget, it was in June and there was a team visiting at King of Kings. And John wasn't preaching that day. And he just came up to me and he's like, I need to talk to you. So like, that would be like you going and saying to, and like, so during whoever was preaching that Sunday, I'm in his office with him and Avril. And I'm like, I am in trouble. Like, what has happened? And they said, well, they had Taylor was their preschool children's minister, and he was coming back to Station Hill, and we talked with the leaders of the church, and your name is the only name to come and lead our children's ministry. And I was like, how in the world?
You're like, was the Lord going to talk to me about this too?
I was like, there's no way I could do both jobs. And so I thought if I reached out I had people in the States who would keep me accountable and pray for me and all of that. And so I thought when I reached out to them, they would be like, this is crazy, Danielle. No, you cannot. And they were all like, this is it. Like, this is so...
I love what you share there, though, and it's why partnership in these relationships are so important, and why your sending church supporting you is because you have these people constantly praying for you who aren't in the day-to-day with you, but they're just walking with you, they're hearing your heart, and they can see and perceive, from the Spirit, like, to you, again, you're thinking, I just don't have enough hours in the day, and they're saying, you know what, Danielle, actually, that's consistent with what God's doing in your life and your gifting and your heart. That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, 9 years ago, I came on staff as preschool children's minister at King of Kings. And I have to say, I mean, I love what I do at Living Hope, but they are literally two totally different where, you've known me 20-something years. I want to be around kids. I want to teach kids. Like, that is my gifting, but it just is, it's so joyful and just, I love it. And that wasn't what was really happening at Living Hope. My role there was to mentor, which is needed and all of that, but realizing after some years there was a gap. Also being in the life of kids and families, like really walking with families. And so coming on staff at King of Kings it like ticked the box in ways that...
Well, and the local church, you
Yes.
know, and you know, you serve there, but also you become part of that church family where they're pouring into you as well.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that Living Hope was born out of a local church.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nonprofits that have varying levels of relationships with the local church, but as we know, it's best when there's close alignment.
Yeah.
And so I love that you were able to say, you know what, this puts me back with kids again, families, which is kind of that first calling.
Yep.
You know, is to influence and impact them with your teaching background and all of those things. So how cool is that? So here you are, and now today you're managing both of those at the same time.
I manage both.
Yeah.
Yes, it's unique.
Yeah.
But I think what also makes it work so well, I wouldn't like recommend it to everybody.
Sure.
But I think because of the fact King of Kings and Living Hope work so well together. Yeah. In fact, Victor, who is the executive director at Living Hope, and Neil, who's the senior pastor at King of Kings. Technically, Neil is Victor's boss.
Okay.
Because he's the head of the trustees at Living.
Gotcha.
So because of the partnership,
it's a real symbiotic relationship
between the two. I think it works. So like if there's a church commitment I need to do, and there have been times where we've had mission trips, and it'd be during VBS times, and like, but I'm kind of needed to go there, and you know, I think it works versus if it were just. Here's a nonprofit, and here you are as the children's minister of this church, and so. But
the church understands that, and the ministry understands the church.
Yeah,
and those things are so important, and it's so beautiful, right? When that does work together instead of kind of competing for energy and resources and staff members and all of those kind of things. So good. Well, let's talk for just a minute. Again, just give people perspective on what we talked about in the sermon yesterday. So there's this understanding that there's really no uncalled Christians, right? We're all called to get the gospel out.
Okay, can I just say this?
Yes.
I had a really good chuckle to myself, not out loud in the service yesterday, but when you played the video played, and then you asked who is called to go.
Yeah.
And like 10 of us raised our hand.
Yeah.
And I'm chuckling because in children's ministry, I mean, even at VBS 2 months ago, we asked the kids, and the kids pick it up and knew. Like the kids all raised their hand, and I'm going.
Kids aren't afraid, are they?
And here we are in this big crowd of adults, and they're all like,
Wait, is it a trick question?
Yeah, it was just kind of one of those, like, we're all called to go. I love that.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to put us all on spot, because I think sometimes, again, we've not been real clear with those terms and definitions, and want to unpack that biblically. Yeah. So, again, in Romans 10, Paul is saying, the only way that people can hear the gospel and be transformed is if people are sent, right? And we know that Christ sends. So if we're obedient, the question isn't if, it's how, it's when, it's where. And you've done a great job today of walking us through that. Talk to us a little bit about what you would say to the person who's out there, right? And again, they're grappling. Do I put my hand up or not? Now, they know at the end of the sermon yesterday.
Am I going to be called to Africa?
That was what I joked about, was what did I just sign up to do? But yet, again, I'm praying that by the power of the Holy Spirit, some people raise that hand, and they will go look back on that day and say, you know what, that was the moment that the Spirit started working. Yeah. So what would your encouragement to be to those folks who are just, beginning to ask those questions? Lord, at the end of the sermon, again, it's an assignment, but I also like to consider it an adventure. Yeah. Because I really feel like when you're walking with the Holy Spirit and you live surrendered, that again, God's given you an assignment in South Africa, but even that assignment has been fluid. Oh yeah. As we've just talked about, you've had different roles and responsibilities, and He's broadened that to really 2 roles. So, but just help somebody get started.
So I would say first off, and you said this in the sermon yesterday, was pray. And because I've often had young people come and talk to me, especially like kids that are now adults. Yeah. So the first thing is pray, and then I say, then you go back and you pray, and then you go back and you pray. Yeah. And then you ask a couple people to pray with you. Good. So who you won't be scared of what they say, good or bad. I mean, again, I had trusted people praying for me, and some of them were like, Danielle, we know you're called to go, but you are not called to do. There was another job that people were kind of, and they're like, but you are not called to do that. So even that, where you have trusted people who, they're not going to hurt you by what you have to be ready to hear.
Well, they walk with the Lord, but they love you, and they want to. You give them permission to speak into your life. Yeah.
And I would definitely say, if you're feeling called to a certain place, if you're feeling called to a certain part of the world, see about going on a mission trip.
Absolutely.
Whether you've been there or not, going to actually go, but put those lenses on of, and pray when you're there. Like, again, and that may not be feasible. That may not be something you can do, but talk to people, research what is happening in that area. Because Keith said this too yesterday, like we're not, and I think you alluded to, where's our cape and where's our, the missions mama has a cape, but
that is true. That is
she has a
true.
cape. But I think it's one of those of really praying through, because if you talk to any global worker, there are hard moments. There are really hard times. But what you do is you always refer back to your calling. You refer back to those moments and saying, Lord, it is abundantly clear. I know that you sent me here. So I think there's all those pivotal moments of, but it's the journey of you go and pray. You go and pray. You go and pray. You go and pray. Ask the Lord for scripture. Then you bring it to other people and say, this is what, not a whole bunch, but 3 people, like, a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Go and pray, have them pray, come back. And I think the other part is we're not in the microwave season. So this takes time.
Well, yeah, Keith mentioned, right, 3 years, I think. You were talking about 4-ish?
Yeah. Now, mine was 11 months, and I was there from 11 months of the Lord making it abundantly clear. But again,
but
that
there was
also a
process
different
before
time.
that, as well.
And I think too, if you're looking at being involved, people knowing like different situations. And again, I think now the way, and I can only speak of Brentwood, even though I have friends that are global workers from other churches and different things, but the whole setting you up well and sending you well, going to training, doing different things, language school if it's needed for whatever you may be doing, those are all huge things that may be like, well, I'm just ready to get there. Well, there's
Keith
a lot.
mentioned the equipping of the called, right? And we have learned, and again, we want to get people to the field as quickly as we can, but we've also learned it's good to equip and prepare so that when you step into those roles, you feel confident. And honestly, Danielle, we've learned from your experience, you've been with us so long, and others, like what really is important in that process. And so thank you for that as well, being a part of that for us. So there's something to be like, all right, Lord, you've called me to this, I'm going, and you modeled that well for us. There's also, I guess what I also want people to hear is we will walk with you through that discernment process.
I love that. And having had, we've had a lot of missionaries that have come to Living Hope over the years, and just when you hear from their church, they just sent them, and it's not in a bad way, but again, Brentwood, we are blessed. Even, Mac alluded to this yesterday during the prayer time, like the giftings that Brentwood has, able to help equip and send well so you will stay on the field, so that there won't be, you're there for a year, this was not what I wanted, and leave. Because it's also hard when you're working with nationals. Like, people get attached, and
it takes
all of
a
those,
long time to build relationships and trust, especially cross-culturally.
Yes, it takes a very long time to build that, and just to not be like, I'm here to change everything, but no, I'm here to walk alongside of you and journey with you and do life with you. So those are the things I would say is pray, ask others to pray with you, and then from there, if you know that you're called to a certain place, if you go have a coffee with Keith, as he has even said, and then have a conversation with someone who's there. And if you can go, I remember when I was toying with moving just for a year, Brentwood was taking their standard trip that they took in the September timeframe, and I went on that trip with the eyes of, can I do this? Can I move here and live and do it? So it was very different. I had already been to Cape Town on 2 other mission trips, but this one looked very different because it wasn't, everything's planned for you. That's the good thing about mission trips. Everything's planned, and when it's you, and as a single person too, it's very different.
Different intensity, maybe is a good way to put it.
So going with those eyes to be able to look and see, is this possible? And then from there, what would that look like? But it is a process. I think what to not scare people off that it's a process, but to know it isn't, you're going to go next month.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot
and
of...
again, you're not alone. We will walk with you through it. So, man, this is so fun. We could do this all day, but I know, there's a lot going on. Couple of things. Mm-hmm. One is just share with our listeners, what's God teaching you right now in this season?
This has been a really hard season. So I've been back in the States since February because my mom passed.
Yeah.
So again, something of being a global worker, and when you leave and you're sent, you don't know what life looks like. And so the call came that for 17 years I was scared of. Yeah. It came. And so I had to come back. And so I've actually been back. So this has been a hard season, but it has also been a beautiful season of a church coming alongside of me in a way that has made the hard a time of beauty. Even in the hard. I mean, I miss my life in South Africa. I miss life. I miss ministry. I miss my kiddos. I miss all of those things. But I'm also so thankful to be here, to have opportunities here to get poured into, so that when I get to go back home to South Africa, I'm there. So I think, and the Lord is, I know I'm not good at resting. So to be in a season where a lot of these responsibilities are not on me right now, other family responsibilities are on me, but just a totally different season. And it's part of what happens. Sign up to be on the field. These are things that do happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your authenticity, because again, life happens. Yeah. And in God's timing, you were able to have the season to both be present with your family, which is important. But I also love that you have mentored and trained. So those ministries, both at the church and with Living Hope, just continue to run. And I do hope that in God's timing, it's been a good season for you. It's part of what our church longs to do is to pour into you guys. I know that being in ministry, it of course looks different being a pastor, but you do have to have people who pour into you because you're pouring out all of the time.
Yes.
And so, man, Danielle, we're just going to continue to pray that. So along with that, any other specific requests? How can our listeners, how can our church family pray for you?
I would say definitely pray for Living Hope and pray for King of Kings. Yeah. It's interesting when you leave and you've poured into people. Yeah. And they can do it and they're doing it, but it's also different and also wanting to be an encouragement to them. So I love when I can say to them, there are people here praying for you that may or may not, on a more when you're not around type of thing. But pray for the ministry of Living Hope. There's so many amazing things that are going on just in our departments of encouraging young girls and programs that we're doing and equipping parents, which is just, that's huge. And so those are big ones. And then we have our next VBS coming up in October. So those are big things. And from the church side, the same thing. We do a huge event as an alternative to Halloween. And even the Lord knew last year I wasn't there. I was on a mission trip. So everybody knows how to do this event without me there.
They're equipped,
and so that's happening, as well as a kids camp later in the year. So that ministry still continues. So I think just praying for our lay people and I'm just excited that God is using them, but also ready to get back and be with them.
Yeah. So, both things can be true, right?
Holding both.
Yeah.
And so I would say definitely praying for both Living Hope and King of Kings, and they're doing incredible things, and there's amazing things happening. So I would say praying for them, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Danielle, this has been a blast. Thank you for coming on with me, and hopefully it gives our folks just a better glimpse into you, into the process of becoming and serving as a global worker. And man, just thank you personally for what you've modeled for me and my family. It's been a joy to just pray for you over the years and watch the growth of your ministry and your influence and all the things. So cool. And we're looking forward to the gathering here in a couple of weeks.
So excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to have our whole team back home before we send you guys out, and we'll be praying for you and God's perfect timing in that as well. So that's it for this episode in our Global Mission series. Danielle's story reminds us that the gospel isn't just going to the nations, it's also taking root in the hearts of children and families around the world. So let's continue to pray for her, for Living Hope, and for the future children's ministry at King of Kings. And don't forget, this Sunday, August 17th, a global worker will be preaching at every Brentwood Baptist campus. So come ready to celebrate and hear what God is doing globally through our church family. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the rest of this month's conversations, and we will see you next week on the Sermon Notes Podcast.